Welcome back to the NESHAMA podcast. Today we're going to have our special guest, Aura Rosenblatt, who is a woman that embodies the art of returning to oneself.
Mm.
Aura was born into a family of 12 children. She grew up surrounded by songs, stories, and community. Her path has taken her from the world of beauty to becoming a life coach and a spiritual guide and a host of a podcast called The Dream Detour. Through her Rosh Chodesh circles and women's retreats and Divine Wealth series, Aura helps women to really rediscover their inner beauty and connect to the divine with joy and clarity. Thank you so much, Aura, for being here. It was so wonderful to reconnect with you recently over the holiday, and
Yes.
I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you, Rena. What a beautiful introduction. You almost made me cry there. I was like, it's so nice to have what you're doing reflected back to you. Thank you
Mhm.
for that.
Of course. And I think one of the things that's really beautiful as part of getting older is seeing how your friends evolve and
Yes.
the paths that they take. And we've been lucky enough to know each other for a long time now, pre-marriage and kids and careers and all that kind of stuff. So it's really special for me to see how things have evolved over the years. Um,
Totally.
so I want to start with talking about your special family because family and our childhood definitely inform who we become as adults and the roles that we play, and the things we decide to do. And I want you to share with our audience a little bit about how you grew up. You come from a very large Chabad family, and your
Yes.
parents are very, very special people. Um, and a lot of people don't get to grow up with that type of a household or parents. So I want to hear about what your childhood was like as far as the value system that you grew up with and how it really shaped who you are.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I would say that my childhood and family life completely shaped me and continues to shape me as I get older and evolve and I keep becoming a new person, I would say. And growing up was really interesting. So I'm one of 12, as Rena said. My parents were a big Chabad Rabbi and Rebbitzin out in Los Angeles. So their names is Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz. They call him Schwartzy. And my mom, Olivia, who is incredible, Rebbitzin Olivia, incredible in her own right. And we had a very wild home. So, besides having, as you can imagine, being one of 12 and having tons of kids around constantly is loud and fun and exciting, included in that, they would have these huge Friday night Shabbat dinners. They called it dinner for, in the beginning was 30 strangers, it moved on to 60 strangers. They absolutely never had any idea how many people were showing up. It
Uh,
could be 30, it could be 60. And we
uh,
just, cut the chicken accordingly as people came. And then every once in a while, my mother would be like, oh, we need another table. Okay. There's like 40 people in the room and we're pulling tables and chairs and stuff out. But the value there was to be welcoming. So it didn't matter. A lot of people need to know how many people they're having for dinner, to know how much food to make, to know how to set the tables up beautifully. In this day and age, there's a lot around what things look like.
mhm.
And for us, it was never about what things looked like. So much so that my parents, who were Chabad and obviously brought us up in this Chabad community in Los Angeles where everyone else kind of looked the same, they did not. So
Mhm.
from a young age, I had to get very comfortable with, you know, maybe someone looks a little different and that's okay. And also that what is important, right? Looks aren't important. Being warm, being welcoming, being an open home, being in service of Hashem. Godliness was a huge value in my home, always talked about. Bashert, synchronicity was a huge value, always talked about. And so that really informed the way I became as an adult. And it's interesting because I went into, as Rena said, my first career was a makeup artist. I was a makeup artist for 20 years in Hollywood, in fashion. And I think one of the things that really kind of held me grounded, because in those worlds it can get crazy, is my home that I grew up in, of knowing what's important and being rooted is important, and beauty absolutely has a place and is wonderful, but it's not everything.
And and when you saw your parents welcoming people, other than creating this beautiful, warm environment, was there, I know your mom is a teacher.
Yeah.
So was your mom sharing at the table?
Yeah.
Was she, how was
Yeah.
your mom within that context, other than the hosting the food? What other roles did she play?
That's a great question, and definitely very reflective of how I am. So, my mother was very much a part of the team, and this is mostly in Chabad homes. I've noticed it a lot in Shluchim homes, in Chabad campuses. The women are very much front and center with the men. Always has been, always is. And so my mother was just as welcoming when we went out to, like, there used to be like these festivals in LA that we would go to. My father would be trying to talk to people about Judaism and Jewish astrology. My mother would be out there giving candles for like Shabbos candles, talking to people, trying to get them interested in godliness. So in the outside world, she was very much front and center, and even in the home. So every Friday night, she would share a Hasidic story. She's an amazing storyteller. I always like to say I come from like a legacy of storytellers. My father's a great storyteller. My mother's a great storyteller. I remember my grandmother sharing, like, reading stories to me, and I felt she was a great storyteller. So my mother would share a Hasidic tale that was always very impactful. And it was either of one of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's, the seven of them, right? Or the Baal Shem Tov, or Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach, or, different Hasidic rabbis, or some of her own stories. She has these incredible Hasidic tales. She had a very interesting life. She's writing a book about it. It will be out soon. So she was always involved and she was always sharing. And then throughout the week, she had classes. She always had classes in her home. So she would do Parsha classes in her home and Tanya classes. And then she would go to different other people's houses and they would invite their friends and she would give classes there as well.
So it sounds very much like your mom was like deeply inspirational to, especially with what you're doing now, where you're connecting people so much to like their neshamas and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
before you got to this place of where you are right now, you worked in beauty for such a long time. So why did you go direct into that type of like spiritual guide, life coach thing? Why did you go the beauty route for such a long time? Like how did that speak to you more than sort of like where you are right now?
Yeah, great question. So as a kid, as a teenager, I was always very rebellious. Even though I enjoyed our home very much and I enjoyed Shabbos and all of that, like, I was a person who was always in love with the world and I wanted to explore. I'm very curious by nature. I still am. And I just wanted to explore what was out there beyond my, Jewish Chabad lifestyle. And I've always loved makeup and fashion. My mother's a hippie. She doesn't wear makeup. She doesn't do fashion. She's still
Yeah.
wearing like clothes from the 70s that she brought from India, probably. But my grandmother was like, Bubby Martha was her name, and she was like a 1950s housewife. So, like, what you imagine, like the perfect housewife from the 1950s, that was her. She dressed amazing. She never went out without makeup. She adored my grandfather, her husband. She was the homemaker. He went to work. She didn't take care of any of the bills. She took care of the children. Like, she made the dinner parties. She was very much a woman of that time.
Mhm.
And so when I was born and very early on, I was into makeup and beauty and clothes. Everyone used to call me Bubby Martha's Revenge. Because my mother was not. So it's something that has always been a part of me, just beauty. And it's physical beauty of like makeup and clothes, and it's like the beauty of the world. I love nature. I love cities. I like exploring different things and different people. And I think part of my this rebellion to kind of be different and be out there was I don't want to do what my parents do. I don't want to follow that way. I don't want to do what my community does. So I went to Israel for the year, which most of us do. And then after everyone either gets married, they move to New York, they go on shidduch dates, they work as teachers, they work in the Diamond District. There was kind of like just this way. Some of them go to Turo for some schooling, but no one I knew was really like going to get degrees at the time. Now it's different. At that time it wasn't. I was like, I really wanted to do something different. Um, and so a friend was like, well, what do you love? I'm like, I like makeup and I like clothes. And she's like, pick one. And literally that's what I did. I picked makeup. I have a very close family friend named Molly Stern, who was already a huge makeup artist. She does like all the top celebrities. She's really good. And she became my mentor and guide. And I just started following that world. And it was super exciting. And as I said, like I like exploring the world and it was so different. I got to be on runways. I got to be doing magazines and working with celebrities. And like it was really exciting for me. And I think this like wanting to be a teacher has always been inside of me as well. I'm really good at it. I'm not afraid of people, so it's easy for me to interact. And that I absolutely got from the home I grew up in,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
I was interacting with adults from a young age and having like real conversations. But the beauty world and the fashion world and the movie world like really pulled at me. And especially growing up in LA, like in the 90s, we were just surrounded by celebrities. Every Starbucks I went to, we would see someone like there's definitely a pull to that. And
Yeah.
I don't know that it's a holy pull, but at the time in my early 20s, that's not where my focus was at all. My focus,
Yeah, but I think that beauty is can be holy. I mean, there's definitely um you can definitely see the divine in beauty, whether it's makeup or fashion or nature, all
yes,
those things. There's an energy that it draws up in you, and it's just like anything in life. Like, how do you channel that energy? How do you take what's there and use it for something good rather than something that's more like ego based, right?
for sure. And
Um,
I think as I went along in my career, I was able to merge the two. And that's what kind of led
how
me.
so?
Well, in the beginning, it wasn't holy for me, and everything can be holy, as we know and as we learn that. And that's what we're here to do, right? We're here to be in service of God and we're here to elevate the divine sparks and everything.
Mhm.
So I would say if I had gone into it like, I just love this and I want to elevate the divine sparks, yes, it would have been holy. And on some level, it was because as a human being, I am. But just to be transparent, like I was, as I said, in a very rebellious stage. And for
Yeah,
me, I was doing this to like move out of the community
yeah,
and be in the world. And, you know, I wanted to party with the celebrities. I wanted to wear, short shorts with the celebrities. Like all these things that I wasn't supposed to do and I wasn't allowed to do growing up. And it was really part of a exploration of self that I think was needed for where I am today.
yeah. You reminding me of my my first career was in the entertainment industry also. I don't know if we knew each other then, but
Well,
I worked at MTV and VH1 for many years
I
and
met you right after.
yeah, so it might have been right after that. And like I literally worked in Times Square where like Total Request Live, if you remember
Oh
that,
my God, yes, of
like
course.
the day when MTV really mattered in the music
Yes, MTV was king.
was the thing. And like every time a major artist would come out with their album, they'd come to MTV to promote their latest things. And I got to meet Beyonce and
Oh my God.
Coldplay
So
and it's
cool.
like all these incredible things. And it was like the most
Yeah.
exciting world to be in, you know? Um, but at a certain point, you're like, there's more than just, the glamour and the glitz. And especially when you see it up close and you meet those people up close,
Yeah.
you get over it really
Real
fast.
fast.
You're
Real
like,
fast.
okay, been there, done that, move on. So I can totally relate to that, the draw to that
Yeah, the draw
that
was
world.
strong.
Yeah, there's something very beautiful about that world. I'm interested how you transitioned out of there because I know your podcast is called Dream Detour.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what was that the reason you chose that theme or that name for your podcast because it was like a defining thing in your life? Like, how did you go in that direction?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I think that as I said, I'm really into synchronicity and divine timing and Bashar. And I think that we choose things or we think of things or we create things, even if we're creating for something outside ourselves, it's always a mirror and reflection of what's going on inside. So
Mhm.
when I started my podcast and chose the name Dream Detour, it wasn't about, in that moment, it wasn't about me. Looking back, it obviously was all about me, right? Like it was about what I was going through and what was transitioning. So just to back up a little bit, as I was doing makeup, and it was great. And then we moved to LA, my husband and I continued doing makeup there. I started having kids. And when I started having kids, I realized that the makeup lifestyle that I was involved in, the TV, the commercials, the magazine shoots, was a really hard lifestyle to have with babies. And also, I already wasn't working on Shabbos, which was hard for me in this business, but I didn't care, right? So there was a lot of jobs I had to turn down that was either on Shabbos or on Yontiv, top celebrities. I couldn't do any press junkets, which are the press releases for movies that these celebrities go on. They go on these tours in different countries. And that's really where big money is for makeup artists because you go with them to England, to Japan. You go for 2 weeks and you make a ton of money by doing their makeup for these press junkets. And I never could go on them because I always kept Shabbos. And then I had these little babies. And I remember on a glamour photo shoot, it was a 15-hour day. I think my son was about 7 or 8 months, my firstborn Cole, and I nurse. And so I had my nursing pump and my backpack and my bag, and I'd go into the bathroom 4 times that day to nurse. And I just kept pumping, and I was sitting on top of the toilet. It was like this, it was at Milk Studios in LA, and it was this very glamorous bathroom. It was big mirror, and I'm sitting on the tub with like, I'm sure those of you who have nursed, you look like a cow and you feel like a cow. And I'm sitting there pumping, and it's like the ninth of 15 hours. And I just looked at myself and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? This is not the light. And it was the first time I feel like I really stopped to think of like, where am I going with all this? Before it was just like hustle, 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 get a better job, get a better celebrity, get a better magazine. And it was the first time of like, well, what's the long term goal and game? And I was like, I don't think I want to be here. And so I decided at that point to transition to makeup for regular clients, which I was already doing, but it wasn't my focus, and started doing, weddings, bar bat mitzvahs, events. LA, a lot of people do events, and those are 2 to 3 to 4 hours tops. And then I'm done. And then I'm back with my family. And I was like, oh, that makes more sense.
Mhm.
And in that process, I started really connecting with my clients. We have conversation, and I ended up, we always say makeup artists are the therapists and the life
Yeah.
coaches and right, the hairdressers as well. People tell us everything. We listen, we validate, we understand. And so I was already doing that. And because, as I said, I'm really comfortable with people, people were really hiring me to be in the room with me more than my
Yeah.
makeup.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so it felt like a detour of some sorts. And it was also really hard because my ego and the emotional state of myself was, oh, I was supposed to be a celebrity makeup artist and I'm not, so I'm a failure.
Mm.
And that was really hard to be present with.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I
But
was,
because you define success as something that was something you get from the outside world rather than
correct,
from your
right.
home life.
So success to me was outside world, the work I do opposed to the life I'm living.
Right.
And if you had looked at the life I was living at the time, I was very successful. I was happily married. I had some beautiful, healthy, lovely children. I have a great family. I have tremendous friends.
Yeah.
We were doing fun stuff, you know, like it was all good. But because I had hooked my ego on this job that I had one day decided was my life's career, I didn't really think more than 2 minutes of it. I was feeling very much like a failure. And it was really
Mm.
hard for me. And so, as I do, as I said, I'm a really curious person. I was like, I'm curious about other people who feel like a failure, but are now really successful. Like, there's other people out there, and podcasts had just started happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, I gotta talk. And then there was these two really popular podcasts at the time.
Mm.
Um, One was called How I Built This. Did you ever listen to that?
No.
Excellent podcast. And it was about really successful people who made big careers. So like the woman who created Dry Bar, the women who did Soul Cycle, like, and it was their stories. And I was like, this is so interesting and awesome. I said, but what about all the people? Like, I'm always curious about the people who don't make it, right? What
Mm.
about someone who like tried to do something like Soul Cycle and like they failed. Now they have no money. And, you know, like, where are they? And so I started searching up people who really wanted to be successful at something, failed terribly, but detoured into something else and were extremely successful in that other thing. And that
Mm.
was a really interesting story to me.
And was your podcast specifically just for that? Was that your
Yes.
whole? I would imagine it's hard to find people like that. That's not such an easy thing to
No, it's actually extremely easy. That's almost
really.
everyone in this world.
Wow.
Because if you think about it, most people have three careers in their life,
Mhm.
right? And so everyone keeps detouring till they find something that either sticks or speaks to their soul or they're
Mm.
successful at.
Mhm.
And so even in all the people I interviewed in that first stage of my podcast were all people I knew.
Mm.
So I interviewed about 20 or 30 people at that time, and they were all people I knew personally. And they
Mm.
all wanted to, and I can give you some examples, right? So, like, Dove's Blue Fringe bandmate is this guy named Avi. He's an incredible guitarist. He was going to be in a band his whole life. That didn't happen. So, he's a music lawyer at Universal, right? Very successful. My brother Shmush also thought he was going to be in a band his whole life, didn't pan out. He couldn't make enough money. So he's an insurance person, whatever, insurance person, so successful. My friend Molly Stern, who's an incredible makeup artist, she was trying to build a clothing line. Didn't happen. You know, so there's so many people out there who also, and the story, the part of the story that I really wanted to bring out and that I felt really resonated with people was those feelings of failure because no one talks about it. Like, and I think my podcast has turned into let's talk about all the things everyone's scared to talk about.
Mm.
Right. So the first one was like, let's talk about failure, what it really feels like. What does it
Mm.
really look like? Because the reason I share and converse is so that other people can feel more comfortable
Yeah.
and know that they're not alone.
And also, it's interesting because I feel like the times that we live in now are so unique in that it used to be the old model for success was you get a job and you work your way up
Right.
And that was one model. Then there's the entrepreneurial model. You build a business, you start a business, and that's your business. I feel like this generation now, which is something that I really resonate with, is more like you can be successful at lots of different things. You don't need to have just one career. You could be,
Yeah.
multi-talented and multi-successful in lots of different areas. And that's something that I had to get my head around in the last few years was how, because that's what resonated for me. How can I be successful? What could success look like for me without looking to the outside world to define
Right.
for me what success is, and doing things that usually are not aligned with just one field or one track, like multi-tracks and multi-fields and lots of different interests and passions, and to be solid with that. And it's
Yeah.
the safe route, like the safe route is choose one path, stick to that one path, get the degree, get the job, and I think that more and more now people are feeling more comfortable to try lots of different things at the same
Yeah.
time. And also, I think that kids growing up now are not necessarily interested in just going to college and getting the job. So I think that we live in a really incredible time when there's so many different ways that we can express our neshamas that aren't just like in the box.
Yeah, totally. And I think it has to do with the fact that we're getting close to like the messianic times, right? The Geula times. We're like in this space of like one foot in and one foot out. And if you think about it, like where Hashem comes in, right? The godliness comes in. We're here in service. And if I'm here in service to God, to the higher power, then my service is needed in more than one place. And so, as we go through and as we discover ourselves and as we focus more inward, right, to find success inside and what that means and what does the connection mean, then it makes sense that we're not just going to stick with one thing that we chose when we were 20 and continue throughout because
Yeah.
we evolve as humans and we get better at it. Like, the fact that I teach now, which I think if I told you my 20-year-old self that I was going to become a teacher, I wouldn't believe myself
Mhm.
because I definitely did it. I have this great story. I was in seminary the year that I was in yeshiva, and I went to this Chabad seminary. It was terrible, but we had a wonderful time because it wasn't run very efficiently. But we had this one teacher, and she was our Chumash teacher, and she was also teaching us how to be teachers, right? Like as I said, a lot of the girls go off to be teachers. And so she had us do this thing where we had to take one or two psukim from Chumash and teach it to the class. Now, again, I was always a terrible student. I had never had an interest in school. I never had an interest in learning. I have very few teachers who enthralled me to the point of me wanting to listen. So I knew I had to get up and give this class, and I knew I could care less. And so, like 10 minutes before it was my turn to get up, I went over the psukim, I went over the Rashi. Okay, I knew it. I got in front of the class and I taught. And it was so simple for me. And I assume because I spent years watching my parents teach, I knew how to engage the class. I knew how to talk. And I will never forget, I don't even remember her name and I don't even remember what she looks like, but I remember her reaction because it was so strong. I was probably like the eighth or ninth person to like do this. And she gets up and she goes, "Oh my God, you're amazing." She's like, "Please tell me you're going to be a teacher. You must be a teacher." And I just started laughing. And I just laughed and I moved on. And in my head, I was like, what an idiot. I am never going to be a teacher. I have no interest in being a teacher. And that always stuck with me. And now I'm a teacher.
And what does that mean to you? What did that mean to you then? And what does it to mean to you now?
I think then it kind of felt restrictive.
Mhm.
Then it meant like, oh, you're good at this, so you need to go on this path that we designed for you, that we want you to go on instead of you discovering yourself
Mhm.
and what you want to do.
So you really you've really been driven by doing things your way.
Yeah, oh, yes, completely. I've been very driven by doing, much to my parents' chagrin when I was, is that the word? Chagrin? Their sadness when I was younger and their joy as I get older.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
incredible. And so now as a mom, I mean you have a lot of kids.
thank
How
God.
do you how do you convey that to them? Like on the one end, wanting to bring out in them their potential, but at the same time creating the space for them to be their own, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know that you can intentionally convey that. I think the biggest lesson I learned from my home life and my parents is that it's really they just copy what they see.
Mm-hmm.
Kids just copy what they see.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, if you tell them something, they're not really gonna, they want to not listen to begin with, right? Because that's part of growth in childhood. But it's just, just by me living my best life and doing things, I still do things the way I want to do it. I still believe in that, even as I've grown religiously and observantly and, in my wellness life as well. I feel that Hashem really speaks to you from inside. Like everything I do now and all the evolvement and the transitions that I've had up to this point has really been a directive from Hashem and from inside. And you have to get really quiet to hear it. And you have to really give yourself space. Like already when my kids were young, and I learned this also from my mother. My mother used to go on women's retreats. She was like the first person to ever do women's retreats for like 30 years. Now it's super popular. Everyone's doing it. But she was really the only one. She was doing it in Palm Springs twice a year. And
I've been to one of her retreats,
yeah,
yeah.
you've been to one. And when I was 18, I was allowed to start going. And they're amazing and incredible. And even besides the retreats, sometimes I would come home from school as a teenager and she wouldn't be home. And I was like, where's Ema? And my father's like, oh, she went to Palm Springs with Patrice and with her friends, right? For 2 days. And I really learned that in order to be strong and powerful and like successful as a human, you need to give yourself space and time to rest. I have my retreat series is called Rest and Reset because in order to really walk in this life with intention and to hear Hashem and what my next step is, you need to be in a restful space. And anyone in the wellness world will tell you, like, your nervous system needs to be calm in order to do anything successfully.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That makes a lot of sense. I mean,
yeah,
I was thinking as you were talking, there were so many things that came up for me. I think
yeah,
you and I both share that around COVID time, we both left California
yep.
and relocated to new states, and we both relocated again
More than once,
more than
which is
once.
intense.
Yeah. So, and I think that those types of big changes for a family don't come easily. Like
No,
you do need, like you were saying, you really need to listen and rest and plug into your inner guide and connect to Hashem in order to understand how to take these detours and to figure out what is the best environment for your family to thrive,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
So when you did that, when you made these big changes, how did you know that that was the right thing for your family?
yeah. Yeah. So the biggest change was we moved from Los Angeles to Nashville in COVID, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy for a couple reasons. Number one, Nashville does not have a big Jewish community, and as we
Yeah.
know, Los Angeles is a thriving Jewish community. I also grew up in Los Angeles, so in LA, I was surrounded by family, including my parents, my sister, my brother, and extended friends. I was in a very tight knit. I was in the Pico Robertson area. all the girlfriends and the families are all right there. I had a huge support system to the point when we decided to move. I had so many friends being like, I don't understand how you're able to do this. How
Yeah.
you're able to do this. So here's what I know. The first thing is that my husband Dove is a musician, and he always wanted to live in Nashville for like years. So we moved to LA in 2010, and probably within a year or two, he started bringing it up about living in Nashville. And I would say to him, "You're so crazy. That's so cute. But you're welcome to go, songwrite out there by yourself. I am never moving there." I would say it like that. I'm never moving there. It is, and I one time said, it is never going to happen for you to live there because it didn't make sense to me
Yeah.
at all. Then, right before COVID, I was kind of getting over makeup in the sense I always loved makeup. I loved doing it, but it wasn't feeding my soul.
Hmm.
And I didn't feel like I was making enough money doing it, even though I was doing pretty well as a makeup artist in the Jewish world. It just wasn't, something was wrong. And I would say that's the point when you're feeling that so strongly and you feel balanced and you feel that your nervous system is intact and you feel aligned with yourself. That is your inner self speaking to you. And at the time, I wasn't in the state of like really listening for the guidance, and so I didn't know that. I just knew that I wasn't feeling it. I want to do something else. And throughout my life, people have always said, "Oh my God, you'd be an amazing life coach. You'd be an amazing life coach. You'd be an amazing life coach." And I was like, yeah. And I know people who are life coaches, and I'm terrified for their clients because their lives are so crazy, right? So I'm like, I can't be a life coach if so and so is a life coach and she
Yeah.
is a nut job. So, but because it kept coming up and kept coming up, I was like, okay, let me explore this. I'm curious. And so I decided to do a life coaching course and see what happens. And there's this course called IPAC. I signed up for it, and it was supposed to start March 2020.
Yeah.
And it was pushed off because of COVID, because it's supposed to be in person 3 times. It's an 8-month course. It was pushed off till June, where they were able to figure out how to do it on Zoom.
Online. Yeah.
Yeah. And within the first weekend is 3 days. It's not a weekend because Shabbos, they did it during the week. And within that first 3 days, I was like, oh, okay, I get this. This is
It
me.
resonated for you. Yeah.
Yeah, this is made for me. And it was so aligned with Hasidus, the ideas about energy and levels, and interaction with people and godliness. I was like, oh, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And so I did this course, and within the first 3 months, it totally transformed my own thinking.
Mm.
Whereas before I was always like, things are a certain way, and I got to follow things a certain way. And there's kind of nothing outside of it because I know everything, right? We know everything. And then in this course, it completely expanded my mind to like, what if that's not the case? What if there's a different way? What if anything is possible and anything could happen? And God bless my husband Dove, who doesn't ever give up, right? Since 2012, I've been saying we're never moving to Nashville. He still asks me every year.
Wow.
Every year. Look, I just saw a house that's $200,000, LA houses were over 1 million at the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that fall, he asked me again. We were chatting. He's like, what, COVID was already heavy. He's like, what if we just moved to Nashville for like a year and get out of LA for COVID and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? Okay. And he was like, what? I was like, get me information, do your research, find out about this community, find out about the school, find out about the life. And the reason why I was able to do that, and I really think this is what coaching does, is before all my fears would attack, right? And what were my fears? I'm going to move to Nashville. I'm going to get stuck there. It's not going to be the right place for me. I'm not going to have anybody. And I won't be able to move back because moving is so expensive. We won't have the money. Well, I'm
Right.
stuck.
False beliefs.
All these, they're called, yeah, we call them limiting beliefs.
Limiting beliefs,
Yeah,
yeah.
that just stop you,
Yeah.
right? Stop you. It doesn't even give you the space to think outside of the box.
Right.
And what happened was, is doing all this coaching, when he came to me again and asked me that, I was like, okay, what's worst case scenario? I hate it. We don't like it. Okay, we move back to LA.
Right.
That that's a huge possibility. And so it gave me the freedom to go. And it was still really scary. So, how do you move a family? At the time, I had 3 kids when I said yes, and I was pregnant already with my fourth. And I knew I was going to be moving with 4 kids.
Yeah.
So we moved when my baby was 7 weeks.
Wow.
Um, thank God for my mother who moved with us for 2 months to help. She's the best. Unbelievable. But how do you move and how do you do that? It's really like, you know, they always talk about being brave. It's really where like your fear meets exploration and curiosity, right?
Right. I think that's like your one of the core values that you have that's
Yes.
coming out at me as you're talking about your path is this this natural sort of like an adventure. Like you have such an
Yes.
adventurous spirit. Like you're curious, you want to try something new, like
Yeah.
you're open. That open-mindedness, it just opens you up to life and its possibilities, you know?
Totally. And you have to be smart about it. So one of my conditions for moving with Dove and knowing that I would be moving with so many kids
Yeah.
and that it would be a hard transition for them, right? Like as an adult, I can understand why this is important, why it works for our family, why it's good. But kids, all they know is that they're leaving everything that feels comfortable and safe for them, right? Really
That's
hard,
the hardest part. That's the hardest
really
part.
hard.
Yeah.
So my condition was that I would stop working for however long we were in Nashville, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 years, because we didn't know past that.
Mhm.
And I'd be fully present and home to help the kids transition and be a full-time home mom. And
Yeah.
I felt that that was really important for my mind and my thoughts and my bodies and my emotions to be fully present. And I didn't feel
100%.
like I could do that. Even like, so some people were like, well, why don't you just take 1 or 2 clients, right? And because I give so much energy to what I'm doing, that's important for me. For me, having 1 or 2 clients on a Zoom is not just 2 hours a week. I'm
Mm.
preparing, I'm doing the back work, I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about them. Like, I'm gonna need to get a coach to help me with my coaching. There's a lot more that is involved.
Mhm.
And so for me, it was really important that I just be present for the family. And I think that was the strongest thing that was able to move us feeling.
Yeah. I find that in general, as a mom, we always have to do these types of like calculations,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Especially when the kids are younger and they need us so much, that you do need to prioritize, you know, like
Right.
what comes first, what can wait, what's the most important right now, you know? Um, I really feel like this is, I mean, this is just my thought, but I really feel like there's this renewed um belief in how important the traditional sort of model is of
Yeah,
motherhood. You know, like I think that old, not old, it's like new but old, but the idea
yeah.
of like, you can have it all. You can have a big career and you could be a great mom and a great wife and a great housewife. Like, no, something is gonna
Something's
crack.
gonna give.
Yeah,
I actually agree with you on this. I
yeah,
actually agree with you on this. And what I like to say is you can have it all, but not at all at the same time.
exactly. Exactly.
That
Like
there's
everything is
phases
different
in
stages.
life
Exactly.
and there's
Exactly.
stages and and that's another thing that I had to come to terms with of, it's not my time to be a major career woman. It's my time to raise a family. I have, thank God, 5 kids. It's a
Yeah.
big household. Everyone needs attention.
Ages, yeah.
Bunch of different ages. My oldest is 13, my youngest is 2. And I also come from a family, and I'm very lucky because some people don't come from this. I come from a family where the most important thing is raising children. And I say that in the best way,
Hmm.
is that so the most important thing is raising children. That was for my parents. It's for my family. And I have three older sisters who are married with kids, and they were all stay-at-home moms. And they're much older than me, and most of their kids are out of the house. And they instilled in me how short of a time frame your kids are home and are fully in your space and environment, and how important and beautiful that is. And the interesting thing is, I do think there is a revival on the I would say OG, old school
Yeah.
not rules, old school rules of like masculine and feminine,
Yeah.
of the husband going off to work and taking care of the finances and stuff, of the mother taking care of the house of kids. Obviously, it's not like that. Everyone's involved in a little bit of different things. Not everyone, but like fathers are involved in their children's home. It's not the
Yeah.
1950s. Um, and I think there's something special to it. And it's not only in the Jewish world. If you look online on the social media, on Instagram,
Yeah.
it's huge
Yeah.
revival of it. And it took me years to understand the importance of it, of the roles. And I'm a big advocate for it.
Yeah, it reminds me of how you were talking earlier about your grandmother and your mother. It's sort of like two polar opposites, and you've sort of like integrated both, right?
Yeah.
That that your grandmother was like the traditional model of
Hmm.
of of a mother and a wife, and your mother, even though she also was a traditional, she was very much about like, the whole hippie culture, like is all about breaking out of the norms
Right.
and creating a new path and doing
Right.
things their own way. But the truth is there's beauty in the old path also. And there's a reason why societies were thriving and successful for so many years with that
Yeah.
model, because at the end of the day, the kids need the mom to be able to thrive and to succeed.
Yeah.
Uh, but I do think that there's still a possibility, while you're raising your kids and prioritizing your kids, there's still the possibility for the moms to have their own thing. Maybe not an all-out career that takes up the majority of their day, but there's still ways to create a space
Uh,
for you to express yourself and to, be creative and productive and do your own thing in your own way. And I think you see more and more of that.
100%. I also want to say that everything is, in my opinion, right? Like, there are many very successful women out there, financially successful,
Yeah.
right? In businesses and careers that are doing great, that do have a thriving family and home life. And it's really about the individual. And I think the most important part of all this is for people to really, as I say, rest, take the time and decide what it is you want for yourself. You know, for me, I was always pushing something that I never stopped to think, do I want this career? Do I want to be out there? Do I want to be at home? Do I want to focus on, just being with my family, or do I want to grow a successful business? And also, whose ideas are these? Are these even my ideas? Are
Right.
these society's ideas? Are these my husband and his family ideas? Are they my family ideas? So, what happens in life is that we kind of move through life going through having conversation, picking up other people's thoughts and ideas along the way. And many times we don't stop to really think about if it's ours, if we own it, if we want to own it. And the conflict comes in is when we're not doing well or we're not happy. And then you can't figure out why. And it's
Mhm.
like, are you intentionally living the life you want to be living? For me, I found and I discovered when I became a stay at home mom and I gave all of my financial worries over to Dove, over to my husband, which is something we never did. I thrived. And what's more interesting is that he thrived
Mm,
because there was like, we each had our models of where we want to be and what we're doing. And it just worked. It worked for us.
yeah.
And so my advice would be to keep exploring the way you're living, how your relationship, how your roles are.
Mhm.
Is this something that is your ideas? Is it society or someone else's ideas? And if you're not sure, just keep trying until you find what feels right for you.
I agree 100%. I know we have to go soon. I wanted to just highlight
Yeah.
something special that you're going to be doing soon. Do you want to share with the audience about what
Yeah.
it looks like and what you were doing there?
Yeah. So I a couple things that I do, and also like you said, the building of kind of a business while you have young kids and it's not like either or. So I've been incorporating stuff into my life and the work I do, and I've done it at a extremely slow pace. When I moved so I moved from Nashville to Atlanta last year. Nashville didn't have a big enough Jewish community. The school ended at sixth grade. We
Oh,
needed more for
wow.
our children. Yeah. Yeah. So in Nashville, I had started doing Rosh Chodesh circles because I'm Schwartzy's daughter and a Chabad girl, and there was nothing there, and I couldn't do nothing. As a Chabad girl, it's in the blood. I was like, I have to give something. What is the lowest hanging fruit that I can do that's not going to wipe me out? And it was like a once a month Rosh Chodesh circle for the women, and it was awesome. And I feel like Rosh Chodesh really held me and kind of brought me back to myself.
Mhm.
Um, it's funny. I just have to share this. I had this conversation with Dove recently. Like, so if you think of it, we're married almost 19 years, 18 years, which is wild. And when we met, I was very different religiously. He's modern Orthodox. He's not Chabad. Um, and like one of the discussions we had when we were younger is that he didn't want to be Chabad, right? He didn't know what it meant either. But like he was worried because I'm so strong and my family is so strong that we would kind of just take over and he would get lost. And I was like, don't worry. Like, I have no interest. We're having a great time. Like, this is all good. And as I've evolved and gotten older and gotten more connected to myself, I started taking on things more observant, religiously, what speaks to me. And I asked him, it's going to make me cry because it was so beautiful. But I asked him the other day, a couple weeks ago, I'm like, I never asked you, like, if you're okay with the direction I'm going in. And for the most part, he's also been learning and evolving. He loves Chassidus, he loves Tanya, like he learns all that. And so it's something that we're really doing together, but it was never a conversation of like, and I'm very into communication and relationship. And it was never a conversation of like, I want to do more. I just do things. I was like, okay, I'm like doing stuff. And I said, is there any part of you that's hard, that this is difficult for, that I'm changing? And he said, you're not changing, you're returning.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And it was so beautiful. And it really made me think about like, what does it mean to like stop and think about the way you want to walk in life, right?
Mhm.
Like, what does that look like? What does that mean? And he obviously, he obviously sees me and he knows me
Yeah,
so well, but like
yeah,
he named it so well. It was like
yeah.
it's a returning to self. And
Mhm.
and that's what it should feel like
Yeah,
when you do stuff. So
I love that. That's
yeah.
like a song to me. Like that needs
He better write a
somehow.
song about this.
There's a song there
I
somehow.
want a song. I'm gonna go tell him right now. Um,
That sounds
yeah,
like a because it is essentially true.
Yeah.
right? All of us, that's what it
Yeah.
is. We're all going back to our true selves.
We're going back to our true selves and our true missions and our true connection. And so what happened with me is once I moved to Atlanta, I continue to the Rosh Chodesh circles here, and they've been wonderful. I do Rosh Chodesh in my house once a month. If anyone's in Atlanta, please reach out. I'd love you to join us. It's like the most incredible group of women. We get into like the deepest conversations about the energies of the month. But over the last 2 years, I was like, I had put my podcast on hold when I moved to Nashville with everything else.
Yeah.
And it was there and waiting. And I could feel it speaking to me of do something with this. It's easy for do what. And I was like, but what? I want again, like I was very into going forward with intention. I didn't want to, I was kind of bored of my old topic. It wasn't speaking to me anymore. And I was like, you know what? It's going to come to me. And as I was doing these monthly Rosh Chodesh, and I was noticing that there was Rosh Chodesh circles popping up in different cities, and
Yeah.
other women were doing that. I was like, this is so cool. And I started following all these women who are doing it. I was like, oh, I feel so terrible for the women who don't have access to this. And I was like, well, what if that's what my podcast becomes? What if I do a Rosh Chodesh podcast where we talk about what we talk about in the circles, about the energies of the month, and then and the names and the shavits and all the beautiful things we get to share. And I could put it on a podcast, and then people who don't have access to a circle, who can't go, who don't know, have access to it. So that's what happened. I started doing my Rosh Chodesh podcast online. I do it with Chana Kalmanson, who is a Chabad Shliach out in England and who's been doing Rosh Chodesh circles for years. And she's very tapped into the feminine side of it, which I love.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And so I started doing that as a podcast. And then that actually really came about because last year was a really difficult year for me. We moved from Nashville to Atlanta. I had to move the kids again, transition them again. They were not happy with us, as you
That's
can
very
imagine.
intense.
It was very intense.
Yeah.
And it was a really hard year, and I needed something and I needed a change. And there's this book called The Artist Way, which
Love it. I
uh,
love this book.
it's the best book. It's by Julia Cameron. And I think the fact that it was written in the 90s and it's like 25 years that it's still number one New York Times bestseller just
Right.
for itself. Literally.
Yes.
It's been
Yeah.
a New York Times bestseller for 25 years. And what it is a 12-week, so that's 3 months workbook. And every week is a different sense. So it's a recovery book. And her tagline is a spiritual path to recovery of the artist or something. I should probably memorize this, but it basically helps you discover your artist self and get rid of your blocks. And she believes, as Judaism believes, that everyone is an artist because we're made in the image of God, and God is the
Yeah.
ultimate creator. And so it teaches us how to rediscover ourselves. And
Yeah.
so I tried to do it 3 times, and it's hard to keep it going by yourself. I fell off.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. You need
You need a partner or a group.
yeah.
And so last year during Pesach, I was talking to a good friend in LA, and I was like, I need a shift. Like I was having a really tough, I was like, I need something. And she's like, why don't we do the Artist Way together? I was like, I keep trying to do it and I'm not doing it. She's like, I feel like if we did a partner. And so we started at Pesach. And what was cool is it went through the Omer. And what we discovered is that every week the Omer was speaking to what the book was like. It was wild. And
Cool.
the partnership, we touched base every single day. Did you do your morning pages? What's your artist date this week? What came up for you in discovery? And it was so rich.
Yeah.
And it totally transformed me. And it was in this process and in that time that I brought my podcast back, that I decided also to do some series on my podcast. So I have a Divine Wealth series, which, as I said, I'm very comfortable talking about what's uncomfortable. And so I talk about money and finances and where it meets Bitachon and Hashem, which is really important for me because as someone who's always struggled with finances, and as someone who people love to talk to, Everyone else I know has struggled with finances. It doesn't matter how much money you have or not. Um, this was a really important topic for me, and it's been amazing. And so I'm very proud of that. And then I decided that,
So it's also interesting because wealth is not necessarily just about money, though, right? There's wealth that you can have with your health, there's wealth with your
yes,
the way you live life. There's so many different types of wealth, right?
yes. And this podcast series is specific to money.
Okay.
I'm very clear about that.
You are such a Taurus, by the way. I can't, like, the whole time we were talking, I'm like, you're so
I'm
Taurus.
such a Taurus. It's true. I am. I absolutely am. I'm proud. Taurus, I'm proud. Yeah, it's very specific to that. So if anyone has ever struggled at all with finances, I highly recommend you listen. This podcast series is incredible. It's on Dream Detour as well. And I can say that because none of the wisdom's my own. I interview rabbis, rebbitzins, manifestation coaches. I actually have another podcast today with Ayelet
Oh,
for
nice.
Divine Wealth. But what I'm offering and what I encourage whoever's listening to join us, if you've ever struggled with who you are or want to discover yourself or want to even like figure out how you can really hear Hashem better and guide you, I am doing an Artist Way group. I call it the Artist Way Forward because it's going to move us all forward.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm starting next Wednesday, the 19th of November, and I will be doing it with the Parsha of each week.
Okay.
So it's going to be the book, and then I'll be incorporating the Parsha of the week. So what it is a once a week Zoom for 1 hour.
Hmm.
That's going to be extremely guided, very
Hmm.
specific about how that's run. And then during the week, everyone's job is to read the chapters, to do the morning pages, which we'll discuss what that is, how to do it, and to do the artist date. And then there's other tasks which you can or cannot do depending on your schedule. But the Zoom, the artist date, the morning pages are all very important. And then we're going to have a WhatsApp group with us because what I found with my friend and what was so transformative was the ability to constantly be connecting over this during the week. So
Yeah.
every day just being like accountability, right? Like I did it, I did the work, everyone's saying I did the work, then you're inspired to do the work as well.
Yeah.
And it'll just change you in the best way.
I love that. I think it's such an important thing to do because, like you said, we're all artists. We all have
Yeah.
creativity in us. I personally really enjoy doing morning pages. Like I've
Yeah.
done that on and off. Um, and it's such a beautiful way to tap into your subconscious even sometimes, right?
I mean, I think the morning pages is one of the best ways to tap into your subconscious because it's free flow, right? So
No filter, no
no
filter.
filter, and you're not supposed to read it at all in the beginning. So you're not critiquing your work. You're not, oh, I sound so stupid. I sound so weird.
Right.
And so what happens on the pages, and because no one's allowed to read it, every once in a while, Dope's like, am I allowed to read it yet? I'm like, never, never allowed to read it. So what happens on the pages is that all the things that are difficult or that bother you about yourself, about life, about your ugly curtains, about your spouse who's being annoying even though you love him, about your children, about their teachers, about how much you hate children going to school, but you also hate the idea of homeschooling. Whatever the issues that come up, they go on the pages.
Yeah.
And what else comes up is what you love. Oh my God, I had the most beautiful experience, blah, blah, blah. And at some point you go back and you
Yeah.
read it. You're supposed to read it at the end of the process with a highlighter. And the highlighter is for what are actions that I need and what are insights. And
Mm.
it really brings you to discovering of yourself.
Yes.
What is your subconscious speaking to you? What do you love? What do you hate? What do you want to take out of your life? What do you want to bring into your life? How is the way, like I've discussed so much about how my ideal day looks. And I've
Mm.
noticed that because I've been writing it down, I keep incorporating little bits of that into my day. And it makes life so much grander.
It's like what you were saying earlier about when you want to get guidance in your life and to really like tap in, you have to rest.
Yeah.
So It's like you're when you do the morning pages, that's when you like your neshama is at rest. You just woke up, you're just starting your day. Before
Hmm.
you get pulled in like a million directions, you're in that space of rest where you could actually listen, right? And,
Totally.
and some people meditate and that's their way of resting and listening, but I think there's something very powerful about just pen and paper
Yeah.